Well, it's a brilliant Thursday morning. We're grateful for clement weather. And what's more brilliant is that your perfect morning starter is here, right here on Channels Television. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka. Hi, Jeffrey.
Absolutely, Bukola. Good morning to you and good morning to our very loyal audience, almost our listeners, the radio characters left. Welcome to the program. We always appreciate you for being part of it, and we'll do our best to make sure that we bring you through all of the things that have been happening in the polity and in politics and in the social space. You know, it's a potpourri of everything we bring right here on the program. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bukola, what have you been tracking?
Well, your beloved People's Democratic Party.
I'm not a member of the political
of course,
party.
We know that you're not a member.
I report politics.
And you're not a member of any political party. That I can attest to. But it turned out that it was a near free-for-all yesterday at the party's secretariat when supporters allegedly of the party's national secretary, well, we don't know whether it's disputed now. You know, as journalists, we always have to be very cautious in ascribing designations to politicians.
It's interesting.
Interesting when they attacked supporters of the party's youth leader, Ude Okoye, who is also in contest for that position. So it makes us wonder which way PDP, this is a descent into the lowest ebb in terms of character and, you know, a disposition about how politicians should conduct themselves. You know, I often wonder when I look at the desperation, when I perceive the desperation for political office by politicians, what is at stake after all? But when we go by the trajectory of what politicking is, we know what is at stake without, you know, coming out in the open to speak about it. And we wonder, you know, if what is at stake is as important as the well-being of the people in the first place. Is that not the reason that we assume political office, such that the people's lives can become better for it? You know, but that is less and less of the case in recent times. And what becomes of the politics of 2027 if politicians continue to conduct themselves in this manner? We've been asking time and again why the opposition party has not risen to the occasion to provide qualitative discussions to policy, you know, for the ruling party, put the ruling party on their toes, put their feet to the fire in terms of the policies that they're spewing out and how it affects the people. But the opposition party has been visibly absent in this regard. And time and again, the defense put up by spokespersons of the party have not addressed the descent into, you know, this kind of character of politicking. I don't know, Jeffrey, how you're perceiving these matters. You know,
I always laugh because it's always interesting. I remember I said it yesterday when I did Mr. Kola Olobodin,
your friend,
who always argues with me. And well, it's very unfortunate how things are playing. I actually had a conversation with Paul Ibe yesterday, the spokesperson of Atiku Abubakar, the former vice president. And there's that rhetoric of always that the ruling party is responsible for the instability. I say, okay, so how long are you going to keep complaining? The game is the game. If the game they are playing is the fact that to make you unstable, then what are you doing for yourself? Yeah, well, he gave other reasons for it. But let's just see how the opposition can rise to the occasion. The failure of opposition is a threat to democracy. Let's be clear. It is not good for a country not to have a viable opposition. It is important that every ruling party knows that if you slip, you're out. It makes everybody efficient to perform. That is the idea of opposition. So if we have a docile or not strong opposition, and leaving the responsibility to the people. So that's what played out yesterday. That's Ude Okoye. It was quite feisty yesterday. It got physical. In fact, people were brought in to kick and all of that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you can see.
So there you have it. Now, if this happens, Nigerians are watching. The electorate, which a lingua which seems to have disappeared temporarily from the lexicon now, they're watching ahead of 2027.
Yeah, so
this will inform inevitably their decision in 2027.
So let's help the audience who are not familiar with the story. Udo Okoye, National Youth League, is one of the NWC members. So the position of the National Secretary has been in contention because Sam Ayan, who was the National Secretary of the party, had gone to contest the governorship position in Imo State. And so that became an issue that he was supposed to leave his position for going to contest, and he got to court. The appeal court ruled in favor of Udo Okoye. So whether there is a stay of execution to say, okay, this is in your favor, but hold on until it's finally decided by the Supreme Court, that's another kettle of fish. So Udo is insisting the court has decided in my favor. I must occupy that seat. Some will say it doesn't work like that. That court, that is the appellate court. There's a final court, which is the Supreme Court. So it's been back and forth. Anyway, so that's what's playing out in the PDP. I just hope I could catch any of these two gentlemen. Let's have a proper conversation.
Right.
But it's interesting. It's interesting to see how it plays out. But they just need to get their acts together and form a good opposition. All right, but let's tell you what we're doing today on the program, Bukola.
We're starting off with a conversation that we hope that the opposition will rise to the occasion and bring, viable ideology to challenge what the ruling government is doing. Well, it's the debt burden. All of that grammar is to say that we're starting off talking about the country's debt burden this morning. The World Bank has relieved that the federal government is repaying 69 loans inherited from past administrations, going all the way back to the Olusegun Obasanjo government. We'll be analyzing how these debts affect our economy as well as government spending.
Well, so that's the debt burden. While every government inherits liabilities and assets. So this is not the first government that inherited those liabilities and assets. So there's nothing really special about this. How do you bring it down is what is special. Okay, so security, we're going to look at it yet again. Some tips, we'll bring our special guest who always brings us up to speed with a few security tips. And today he joins us to give us insight on securing public spaces. Okay.
And besides that, we'll be taking a look at how technology has reshaped the human resource management space and how professionals in the industry can adapt.
And we will be having a chat with Bolaji Ogunwo, a visionary with the fourth visual art industry, will be joining us to shed more light on his inspiration, influences, and how he's training the next generation of artists. So those of you who can draw, it's a good time to check it out. Bukola, did you draw when you were in school? That was a very good one.
No, don't go there, Jeffrey. And finally, no matter how good you are in your craft, you need to have some business literacy, especially as a creative. Our guest joins us to expatiate on how creatives can truly maximize their potential. So there's a business side of every creative endeavor. So how do you turn your creativity into business? Join us for answers on the show today.
Absolutely. So that's the lineup for you. Just be part of the show and we'll walk you through all of this conversations and whichever interests you. We are sure all of them will interest you. But besides that, that's our WhatsApp number. Messages and videos only. Send it to that number. We'll do our best to amplify what you're saying. But on social media, you go to Xpost CTV Morning Brief. It's a hashtag. You get our attention on the program for us to, amplify your voice as well. But hey, Bukola, I think we'll get started with the papers.
Yes, indeed, Jeffrey. You want to go first?
Okay, let's get with the Guardian newspaper. Today, Thursday, January the 30th. So just a reminder, Kyle is going to be joining us pretty soon. Because he was telling us yesterday that today is the last of the month. It's tomorrow, actually. Okay. All right, the headline for the guidelines said, Neglected Tropical Diseases Day. Spike in ailments pushes Nigerians' care funding gap to 8.6 trillion naira. I know I'd done a report about these tropical diseases, elephantiasis, and some of these, I think, is it river blindness? I can't remember all the details now. But some of these diseases that are within the tropics. But the bigger story here is that the spike and the funding gap. Which is always that counterpart funding or total funding by donor development agencies. That figure is very scary. So if you want to know details about this, I think page 6 of the Guardian has all of the details for you. Health has been very prominent these days. Have you noticed?
Indeed, yes, indeed.
Yeah, I've noticed it.
And we're still not there yet in terms of the percentage of our funding allocated to healthcare in the country. And so whether it's neglected tropical diseases or other ailments that are a significant challenge, to the well-being of the population, there is that, funding issue, that affects the entire gamut, the entire value chain of the health sector, that sees, the challenge of brain drain, lack of capacity, to tackle these issues, and indeed, the spike in the number of people that die as a result of, inevitably, as a result of these diseases. But there are other significant stories on the front page of The Guardian, Jeffrey. NLC to protest against 50% telecoms hike on Tuesday. And NLC is always set to protest. But when will they actually make good their threats to challenge this issue alongside other issues? Anyway, well, I just started to ask.
It's good to make your voices heard. Whether it's the response to your voice is another kettle of fish. But the NLC says it's unacceptable to get it up by 50%. The telcos themselves are saying the 50% is not enough. But there's another story before we leave The Guardian that talks about the NCCA suspending marks over Kanu crash incident. And we thank God that did not happen. With these crashes all over. Remember, we just barely, United Airlines incident happened just days ago. Remember what happened in Seoul? I think I was watching one of the international networks before I came to work, where there's an incident in DC between a jet and an aircraft. I was just rushing to work, so I didn't really see the details. So I don't know what's going on with the airlines. But I think we had a conversation on our sister program where the authorities are saying our airlines, our airspace is safe. But I'm happy they've actually suspended them for the next 3 months. And the rule is that after investigation by the NSIB, if they are not satisfied, they may quite extend it. Well, resumption will be after satisfactory investigation, depending on the outcome.
If it's a challenge specifically with the Boeing aircraft, then regulators should look into that space and
I don't know the kind of aircraft they use.
Decisively. I guess it's a Boeing aircraft, and we've had consistently challenges with the Boeing aircraft in recent times. So regulators should advise airlines on what exactly to do as far as aircraft or air transport is concerned. Well, our next stop this morning is Nigerian News Direct. And Nigerian News Direct leads with that concern of our political party space. PDP leadership tussle deepens as Anyanwu Udeokoye fight dirty over national secretary position. And there are some riders there. Udeokoye forced out of BOT meeting. Don't ride a dead horse to reach your destination, Damagun warns party leaders. An acting national chair condemns internal struggles, vows NEC meeting in February. When will that NEC meeting hold? We hope it does hold by February. And who's the dead horse that has been ridden to reach a destination? I just hope that party officials are not taking sides in this particular personality or clash or rivalry, as the case may be. There must be, an unbiased approach to looking coming up with a solution to this crisis, because it's embarrassing for a party that held power for 16 years, to come all out and wash its dirty linen in public, as leaders of the party have so done yesterday. So parties should not take sides. I hope this statement is not a reference to taking sides with one particular side in this dispute.
I just want to say PDP, APC, Labour, all of the parties, especially PDP, it's time to hold your NEC meetings. You have to be holding NEC meetings every 3 months. That's what most of the Constitution says. Because NEC is the biggest, besides the convention, the other organ of the party that checks the activities of the party, intermittently to know how to make progress. But for some reason, these things don't happen. And internal democracy is part of the failure of our political class. Anyway, don't want to overdwell on that. If we move on now, I think there's a story.
Before we move on, there's a story that catches my attention.
Okay.
It's something that gladdens my heart, because we don't always have good stories to tell as far as, this job is concerned. But this is a good one. Lagos unveils 500 million naira subsidy intervention fund for poultry fish farmers. So,
that's nice.
Yeah, very nice. That's pleasant.
Implementation is always key.
Is always key.
So it's a good plan. This is just a plan. Let's make sure that the people that are involved, because how many times I say it?
The people that are involved.
The people that are involved, because things happen in this country.
As they say, policy execution is 10% implementation, not 90% result, or 90% implementation, 10% result. The idea is that result of the policy is key. So let's see the result before we assess the situation. But that's a pleasant story.
Yeah, so
and that's it from News Direct.
So a lot of other headlines too. The same. New Telegraph is the next. PDP crisis festers as Anyanwu Udokoye disrupt BOT meeting. There was supposed to be that BOT meeting, and well, we've said this over and over. You know, everybody's speaking. There's a lot of interest wrangling, and all of this is ahead of 2027. How politicians can drop their personal ambition for the interest of the party is quite critical. We also see there we have NLC set to protest 50% telecoms tariff hike February the 4th. Okay, so that's some of the stories you see in the New Telegraph. So you go to page 2, you see that story on NLC, and page 3 on the PDP crisis. There are other stories above and below the nameplate of the New Telegraph. Let's move on now to the Blueprint newspaper. That leads to the, okay, there's still the PDP story there anyway, but if we leave that to the one above, Chad Basin, Bukola.
Yeah, and the big story here is that the president is demanding multifaceted response to security threats. Task states on poverty alleviation, other root causes. And, you know, here's a clear consequence of the exit of Niger, Chad, and Burkina Faso from, you know, the ECOWAS sub-region group, because there's a real issue of the refugee humanitarian situation as a result of the continuous fight against insurgency. And there's a spillover effect of people seeking you know, some form of respite and refuge from the continuing fight against insurgency in that Lake Chad Basin, and not to talk about those also who are fleeing unrest in their own countries, in these countries that have exited. So where would be, you know, the consensus or the rallying point to fight, to tackle these issues of humanitarian crisis that has bedeviled the sub-region? So there must be continuous engagement, so to speak, with these countries that have exited without necessarily compromising the values of democracy that ECOWAS is trying to uphold. That's it for the big story. But the Blueprint also covers the PDP crisis. Anyanwu Udokoye supporters clash as Zabagun blames leaders for PDP crisis. And that's about it from the front page of Blueprint newspaper. At the top there, you find UK invests £60 million to promote innovative learning solutions in Nigeria. So who are those managing such funds?
We'll find out at the right time. But those are the headlines on the paper. So you can just pick up a copy or go online to read these papers just to get yourself, you know, familiar with the contents of some of these headlines. So you make a decision for yourself as far as the dailies are concerned. We'll take a quick break now. And when we come back, we'll start with the very first conversation about debt servicing, debt burden, debt generally that Nigeria has always had to deal with. It's a problem, but it's something that can be resolved. How do we do that? The experts will tell us. Join us again. All right, welcome back. Let's talk about the burden, the debt burden of Nigeria. Something around the region of 140 trillion. Well, more debts, more loans are being collected. We understand, I think there's a 1.1 billion from the AFDB. So sometimes they're in millions and they're in billions of dollars or these foreign currencies. So when we accumulate it, besides It's both local and foreign debt, by the way. A couple of times we have our local debt way more than our foreign debt. So we just want to look at the entire debt basket, if you allow me to use that term, and how to navigate this part. This government has said one of the things they've done in removing subsidy and allowing free market, taking subsidy from PMS and, of course, the FX market, is the fact that it has allowed them to do more things. And now they've reduced debt servicing that used to be about 96% of our results in terms of revenue to 68, 67% to free up a bit of fund to execute project. But this release by the World Bank saying they're paying about 69 debts or servicing 69 debt across different administration. That's part of the conversation, or the major part of the conversation. We're being joined in the program by the president, the Nigerian Economic Society, Professor Adiola Adenikinju, joins us via Zoom, and Dr. Mark Abani, coordinating Dean CIT and Taxation Faculties, joining us from Afikpo in Ebonyi State. Prof and Doctor, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having us.
All right, Prof, let's begin. You know, the issue of debt is how do we call it now? It's almost like a broken record. We keep talking about it every now and then. And what in your view, for instance, now we're hearing that there are about 69 debt in total, and it's being serviced by this administration, just like every other administration has serviced debt. But what, in your view, can we do to begin to look critically on how we manage our debts so that we can lessen our burden? I just want you to give just an overview, then we'll go to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me this morning. I mean, you said it all, that development requires incurring debt. So debt has always been there and will always be there. And also because of the nature of debts that we have, some are medium term, some are long term. So you have debts now, for instance, where the repayment is over 20 years or more. Okay, so that necessarily means that it would, go over several administration and so on and so forth. Now, so in other words, debt is not bad in itself. The question we must ask ourselves is, how do you ensure that the debt you incur net benefit to the country? So that is the key thing. To ensure that debts are anchored on, one, your ability to either repay the debt from the investment to which that debt burden is committed. That's one. Two, to ensure that when you are incurring the debt, you are able to measure in terms of what are the benefits to the economy, in terms of how much job is this debt likely to create, how is it going to contribute to infrastructural development, how is it going to reduce poverty, how is it going to promote inclusive growth, how is it going to promote macroeconomic stability. So in other words, you don't just incur debts without doing proper analysis. And that is one area we have failed, in my view, in the past. Henceforth, we must see that, yes, we need to incur debt because domestic resources are not just enough, to be able to drive growth and drive development, so therefore, so we need to find a way of ensuring that we supplement domestic debt so domestic revenue rather with some support, so like debt, but we must ensure that these debts are carefully analyzed, and that's the role that National Assembly also has to play to ensure that these debts are carefully analyzed. In the sense that when we sign on to them, there are clear, parameters of assessments, that they meant, and that for which those debts, will be judged. So once we start doing that, we have those clear parameters. Then, in my view, it becomes a lot easier to be able to tick the box. When you want to incur that this debt is good for the nation, this debt can repay itself, this debt can lead to productivity growth, and this debt, is efficiently utilized, and accountable. Again, some of these debts, they happen under the table, and we don't really know how, the issue around the accountability of those debts. That's we need to change.
All right. Let's take it to Dr. Bani. Dr. Bani, I want you to also expatiate on this from what Prof has said about responsible borrowing. If you look at the 2025 budget, and look at some of the very unnecessary things, because that's where it always stems from. At least one of the sources it stems from, where you look at the budget, and then some things look over bloated, some things repetitive, something vague, and then we have this gap in funding when we look at what we are receiving in terms of revenue and what we're spending and the difference, and then what we resort to borrowing. How do we ensure responsible borrowing?
Thank you very much. And indeed, I echo Prof's initial analysis. Part of the issue is not that we have debts, not that these debts go back a number of previous administrations, but how those debts have actually been spent. Now, the very nature, especially of international loans, but all sorts of debts that the country takes on, is that they very often have moratorium periods to allow you use the funds in order to start generating the repayment strategy. Also, a significant number of these loans, apart from short-term 3 to 5 year sort of federal government bonds, which are internal loans, generally to the citizens, from the citizens, these debts span a long time. So debts being taken by the current administration, some of them have got a 40-year lifespan. They've got moratoriums of 3 to 5 years. For instance, the securitization of the Ways and Means bill has now turned it from money that was being printed by the central bank into a debt. That is very good because it has become transparent. And one of the points Prof makes is the lack of transparency around how this money is reported, how this money is taken on board. But that securitization of Ways and Means is over 40 years with a 3-year moratorium on payback at 9% interest rate. Some of the other external loans, especially from people like the IDA of the World Bank, some of them have also got tenures of 20 to 40 years, and many of them are at 1%. So in reality, they are not really such an overhanging issue. The problem is that we need to think carefully about the long-term payback planning on the debts that we are incurring now. So we are in a position where, and these figures always change depending on who's quoting them, so don't hang me on figures. But in the recent past, we sort of have, in terms of external loans, somewhere in the region of $17 billion US, which a lot of them are in payback mode of both capital and principal. And so you are now paying back a significant amount, 5 billion last year, nearly 6 billion last year of capital and principal. This cycle is going to continue, but looking at it now gives us a lot of opportunities because it is expected. There are people who are saying the debt's going to go up to 187 trillion by the end of this year, early next year. This causes debt servicing issues, and a major problem we have is the revenue. So those ratios are important to consider. How we review the fiscal vulnerabilities in our system, and some of these are being addressed by the new tax bills that are being proposed, by some of the other economic steps that are being taken. A lot of them have got very uncomfortable, if not harsh, implications on you and me, the average Nigerian. The principle is that we need, now we've started down that path, we need to continue down that path, take the pain, and plan how we're going to pay back what we have and how we're going to take less loans in the future. The key around all of that is improving our diversification of income. At the moment, 80 to 90% of our revenue comes from oil. With the Trump administration now fracking in the US, which means that shale, US shale, which is comparable to Bonny crude may start to become an issue in terms of our prices, we need to factor all of these econometric items into how much we borrow, how we plan to pay them back, knowing that generations to come are still going to be paying back what we take now. So it gives us an opportunity for economic reforms. It gives us an opportunity for FX reforms. Some of those FX reforms will be painful in the short term. Some of them may, and it's still a bit early to say, but may be starting to bring some results. For instance, over the last few months with the launch of the new FX window that's transparent, the exchange rate seems to have stabilized. So this gives us a lot of opportunities.
Dr. Bani, you seem to have echoed some of my sentiment about how these burgeoning loans have an impact on you and I. The last time we had a similar conversation, my colleague was talking about how each Nigerian may be indebted to the tune of 700,000 naira. That's in 2025. Perhaps in another 10 years, if this continuing appetite for borrowing is still the narrative, how much will each Nigerian owe in terms of debt, external debt? So I'm coming to you now, Professor Adenikinju. Do you get a sense of a fatigue in this continuing conversation about Nigeria's huge appetite for borrowing? These loans go way back to past administrations. Is there anything that will change significantly? Are they listening to this conversation right now? Is there anything that will change significantly when we have another, hopefully, administration in 2031? And what are the long-term consequences of this continuing appetite for borrowing?
Thank you very much. Well, I think the reality where we are, and it's good to be very realistic. A few weeks ago, I was at the Senate and I made a presentation. If you look at the size of our economy, the size of government budget, we are looking at, in dollar terms, $32 billion. In per capita terms, we're looking at $144 per citizen. Now, that's if government spends, the 47 trillion naira of debt, that trillion naira in the budget. Now, $144 per citizen. You can compare with any country in the world, any comparative country, any country you want to say, okay, look, Nigeria should make. I mean, that's where you're going to have government providing security, providing education, providing health, doing road, all the things we want government to do. So the reality is that we are really, really very far from where we ought to be. We are really very far. And really, if you look at developed countries, many countries today, there's a developmental state. In Europe, the average size of government is about 50% of GDP. In Nigeria, we're doing about 12%, 13%. And yet, in all of that, we expect, so much from government. So government has to borrow, in the short term. But there's no way around it. If we want to be able to, live, to improve the living standard of the people and build up people the private sector. So that, provide those infrastructure that we need for our development and addressing of the developmental challenges. So we need government to borrow. But the question is, and which is where we need to focus, is how do we ensure that these debts that are being incurred meet some metrics? And that's where the National Assembly becomes very important. You see, in the past, the military government can borrow because they are not accountable to anybody. They just take decision and they borrow. But when it comes to to civilian administration, the National Assembly is supposed to provide some catalyst, some oversight, to ensure that this debt that you are incurring, this $1 debt, in the middle to long term, is going to provide a net benefit for Nigerians. In terms of, like I said, we are able to repay it, or it's going to enhance productivity of the economy and drive up development. So each debt must be scrutinized, must be, there must be some assessment of those debts. That is the role of National Assembly. And I told them, I advised them that if you set up a National Assembly budget office where you have, experts and models that are ensuring that you put all of these things into debt, and you are looking at 10 years, 20 years, 30 years impact of those debts. You are not just looking at the debt now. You are looking at those debts over 10 years time, 20 years time, and looking at how they are going to impact macroeconomic outcomes in Nigeria.
But Prof, the challenge is some Nigerians will say that they can't rely on the National Assembly to provide the necessary scrutiny for these debts. That in fact, when our appropriations get to the National Assembly, it is certain to be increased when they, mount the figures upon what the allocations that are coming to them. And some would say, okay, perhaps the solution to this is shore up crude oil production, such that we can gain more revenue from forex at that level. But if there is uncertainty around crude oil production, and Dr. Abani has in fact said that there's fracking in the US now, and what is being produced is in the same manner as our own Boni crude. If there is no certainty around our forex, and indeed that will affect the currency, of the naira, are we not thinking about how that will affect the currency in the next couple of decades? Do you worry about a situation where we'll be like Zimbabwe, where a wheelbarrow of currency is inadequate to purchase bread?
I think we are very far away from the Zimbabwe case. We are very far away. And, the issue, and again, if the National Assembly is not doing what it ought to do, again, if the press is there, okay, Nigerian citizens are there, we can't abandon our responsibilities and then shout. You see, what you are doing, channels and other media also has to be very, very much critical in terms of ensuring that, that there's the freedom of information that is there that you guys can take advantage of. Citizens have to be enlightened to ask questions. That's very important. Now, the solution we're talking about in terms of, driving up of, the oil production. Now, those are long-term, medium to long-term things. You can't just, you have to bring, there's a whole process before you can move your production from the current level to maybe 3 million barrels per day. It's not what to do in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So that will take time. And I can also tell you that some of the things that government is doing now, some of the reforms, which is allow the market, taking out distortions, allow market transparency, allow the market system to work, in itself will also help to ensure that, that we don't go the way of Zimbabwe. And Dr. Abani has mentioned it. Look at what is happening in the foreign exchange market. The exchange rate is more stable. Look at what is happening. Investments are coming to the petroleum sector, the energy, the downstream sector, and so on and so forth. So as government reforms this system, the cost will be significantly high on the citizens in the short term. But if we persist, and other complementary policies are brought into place, we got a situation where this country, it would be moving in the right direction, if we can use the word. So I'm not necessarily burdened now because that the debt may be enormous. It's high, but it's not something that is too concerning for me at present.
As we wind down, let's take it to Dr. Abani. Dr. Abani, I want you to speak to the cost of borrowing. When you go to buy T-bills, for instance, and you see maturation getting to maybe 300 and something days, see 23%. I know on one hand that there is this aggressive move for FX accretion for some of this volatile capital, FPIs coming into the country on one hand. But do you think that sometimes the interest we take on some of these, whether it's domestic using bonds, T-bills, or literally collecting from multinational, lateral institutions are quite too expensive for us? Because as Prof has said, sometimes we cannot run away from borrowing, but the cost of borrowing is what I want you to speak to.
Okay. Indeed, that's extremely important. Nobody. There's a famous Igbo saying, "Anejego achego." You use money to look for money, and some of that money has to be factored in by collecting debts. But these have costs. So one of the things that is raising all of the temperature right now is the debt servicing costs of these 69 loans that have been taken, that are being paid back. Some of these loans were taken for very good reason. Some of them were taken for our power infrastructure. Some of them were taken for our health infrastructure. And as Prof says, we, the citizens, should be asking, where is the material, where is the dividend of that loan that we are paying back? We can't alter history, but we can change the future. So we need to start asking those questions. Now, one of the costs, that's a hidden cost of this debt, is inflation and interest rates. This government has announced its commitment to break the interest down to 15% rate from the current 34% it is. Very, very ambitious as that is. But one of the key attributes that is affecting that is, one, the cost of servicing our debt. But secondly, some of the loans we are taking are for security. They are for investment. We don't have a physical headroom to be able to make the investments that are required to make the step change. So all of our money is like a typical front of a market woman who has a few goods on her table. She gives her children biscuit from there to go to school. She pays this, she pays that, and at the end of the month, she comes back to whoever is her benefactor and says, my business don't finish because I've eaten my capital. We need to make sure we simplify this in the minds of people. We need to improve our security infrastructure so that more food can hit the tables. If we don't have more food, the majority, the headline inflation rates are on food. That's what people feel. Stomach infrastructure in the very real sense of it. So those are some of the costs of some of this borrowing. The foreign exchange reserves are going all over the place, apart from under President Obasanjo, who actually negotiated the reduction in our loans, took a hit and paid off some things. We've gone back to the same slide tackling. There's a concept in the UK, in the US, that people have credit cards. Oh, I've got £100,000 or $100,000 limit on my credit card. That's a limit. It's not a target. You need to be careful about hitting how much you can borrow. So although we have got good indica, our debt to GDP ratio is breaching the debt management triggers. 40% is the debt management, the DMO office's trigger. We're standing at about 43%. Debt to revenue ratios have also significantly changed. They've exceeded the 30% and are going up. We need more revenue. That requires diversification. A lot of the economic policies being put in place now, provided we stay the course, will start to give those benefits. Otherwise, you will end up having to go back to robbing Peter to pay Paul because we haven't taken the hit. This goes right back to 1983 with the SAP, with all of the things. And whether we like or whether we agree or whether we have ideological differences about external advisors, World Bank and the rest of them, the point is that these things sometimes are a basket. If you pick things you like from the basket, if you pick all the nice apples from the basket, you'll be left with the rotten apples at the end of the day when you're really hungry.
All right, Doctor.
So there is, and transparency must improve.
Absolutely.
Transparency. Government to account.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we're doing this. I'm sure we're going to invite you gentlemen to come back when the budget has actually been passed and approved, so that we can look at it critically, because there are gaps. We are provided about 16 trillion or so for debt servicing. So given that signal of our reputation that we can manage this thing. But we must thank you so much, Professor Adiola Adenikinju, President of the Nigerian Economic Society, as well as Dr. Mark Ambani, Coordinating Dean at CITN Taxation Faculties. Thank you, sirs, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Time for having us.
Thank you, Prof.
All right, so we will take a quick break. When we come back, it will be time to show you how to secure public spaces, maybe places of worship and all of that. Our security experts will be joining us just in a moment. Join us again.
And now it's time to talk about safety in public places, whether it's a worship center, whether it's the marketplaces, or generally a central business district. And this segment always comes in handy for you. I remember learning about the pepper spray. And so Mr. Ademola Adetuberu, our security consultant and CEO, the Barricade Executive Protection Limited, joins us now from our Abuja studio. Now, Mr. Adetuberu, this is a very important conversation. My heart goes out right now to our brethren in Nigeria's north, where there's always one form of attack or the other in public places, especially in churches. So I'd like you to talk to us about how they can protect themselves. And you know that, danger can be both external and internal. External now, attack coming from bandits or insurgents. Internal, maybe there's a fire. So walk us through how they can protect themselves.
Thank you so much once again. Good morning, everyone. So public spaces are the most important places because these are places where people gather, be it religious centers, be it motor parks or markets. So it's highly important for us. This is a very important topic. And this morning I'll be giving us some tips, some security strategies on what we can do to ensure our public spaces are secured. The first thing I would say is advanced surveillance and monitoring. That's the first security strategy I'm going to be giving us this morning. Advanced security, surveillance, and strategy. And this simply means CCTV deployment. CCTV deployment. The UK, for example, boasts of about 5.2 million surveillance cameras. So Nigeria, the giant of Africa, to ensure that our public spaces are secured, it's highly important for us to ensure we have CCTV cameras to gather intelligence, gather surveillance, intelligence on everyone that come into any of these public spaces. Now, it's not enough for us to also have the cameras because we've also seen a lot of norm in the country today where people install these cameras but no one to watch. So we must also go a step further by ensuring that we have command and control centers where security operatives, civilians, or or security operatives watch these cameras to watch people's movements, gather intelligence, and gather intelligence and surveillance. The second thing I'm going to be talking about is there's a need for us to strengthen access control. There's a need to strengthen the access control of these public spaces. How do we do that? How do we strengthen access control? We may have to introduce search. We've had a lot of killings in the country due to these certain places where people go to religious centers, mosques, churches, markets, and people lay their lives. And so it's high time for us to start to introduce search. And search could be using the metal detector. Before you enter the public space, you're walking through a metal detector that search through your body, your bag, a bag detector that also search through your bag to be sure that you don't have any criminal or IDs on you. The next thing that it's so important, for us to pay attention to is community policing and intelligence gathering. We are in the 21st century. We cannot continue to work with the traditional way of security. The world has gone past that. So it's important. We need to encourage locals to share information with the security agencies. It's so important. Nigerians, I want to implore us this morning, once you see something, please say something. Pass the information. Pass that suspicious activity you have noticed, that suspicious movement you just noticed. Pass it on to law enforcement agency. It's so important. Not only that, there's a need for the police also to go further by having workshops to encourage people, to also enlighten them on how to identify someone that is about to commit crime. Yes, because if, for example, a civilian that carries a concealed weapon will not work normal, there's a way that person will be so conscious of himself. So there's a need for the police to also organize workshops, organize forums to encourage the public, to enlighten the public on how to identify someone in on a suspicious movement. So it's so important we also do that. Also, it's important for us to have what I call emergency preparedness and rapid response. Emergency preparedness and rapid response. If you recall previous episodes we have done before, I've spoken about panic button, where panic buttons are in place. Not only that, security are also deployed, and also for security to be deployed, they don't necessarily have to be on uniform. We can have them as covert operation, security officers at these public spaces. It's also very, very important. Okay, I've spoken about public awareness and mass communication. I think with these few nuggets, these few strategies of mine, our public spaces, the churches, the mosque, the markets, and the motor parks will be safe for all Nigerians.
So there's access control, there's intelligence gathering, there's covert operations by security operatives, there's also investment in CCTV camera for public places. Yes. I hope you also took notes. Yes. But Mr. Adetubero, talk to us now very quickly about safety measures in markets. And this may be a good time to remind those who do not have what do they call it now, fire extinguishers, to have one inside their shops. So talk to us about safety in markets.
So safety procedures in markets, very, very important. It's important for the market administrative team, to ensure, to make a policy that every store, every shop, every mall, you have your own safety equipment. Yes, we should have the public one, which is for the market generally. However, every shop owner should also have theirs. And that's part of what I talked about earlier by also doing workshop on how to curb emergency should it arise. So it's so important. It goes back to training. It goes back to workshop, and it goes back to preparedness, because training, there's something training does. Training boosts confidence. It boosts confidence so that when it eventually happens, you just know what to do in a nick of time.
And just before I let you go, I'd like you to speak to self-defense, which is a form of safety, but how this can sometimes turn awry is a challenge. I quickly remember the New Year's Eve story of the Reverend Father who shot a boy, perhaps, out of worry that the boy was, a man of the underworld that wanted to attack members of the church, or even the Reverend Fathers themselves who have been an object of attack. So how far is so far in terms of carrying a weapon of self-defense for those who are in worship centers?
Well, when it comes to search, before such can be used, before a weapon can be used, it's expected that intelligence has been gathered. We should not be in a hurry, to make use of our self-defense equipment, right? It's so important. That's why the churches, the mosque, I'm sure we all have security departments, right? And that's why if a worshiper notice something, the best thing immediately to do is to notify the protocol or the security of that church or the mosque, And what do they do next? The next thing they start to do is to begin to watch. In situational awareness, we've said it is paying attention to behaviors. So before any one of us, just get to activate our self-defense tools, it's important that first and foremost, it has to be proven beyond every reasonable doubt that that person is a suspect, is a threat. So if that has not been proven yet, honestly, it's advisable that every Nigerian, hold on first to their to the self-defense tools that they have with them. It has to have been proven that you are under threat. And how do you know that you're under threat? There must have been intelligence. There must have been observation. There must have been, keeping memory system. There must have been memory retention. There must have been, you have seen that this person is a crime that is about to happen. Then you can make do of your self-defense mechanism.
Mr. Adetuberu, it's a very tricky conversation because the danger that some Nigerians, face in different parts of the country is very real. I mean, the other day we were talking about even how IDPs are not safe in internally displaced camps that they find themselves in. So, one might ask, even at that, is it legal? Is it legitimate under the law to carry a weapon of self-defense?
It is legitimate under the Nigerian law. It's legitimate under
even
the
a rifle
law for every Nigerian to carry minimum. For example, now, of course, if you are going to be carrying an arm, for example, you must have a permit to do that. You must have gone through the rudiments of training, the rudiment of why you need it, and the police would have given you the permit to be able to carry that. So, but if you haven't done that and you are carrying it, that's illegal. That's illegal. But when you carry the likes of the panic buttons, the likes of pepper spray, the likes of tasers, under the law, every Nigerian is covered. Under the law, every Nigerian is covered to carry these particular types of
categories of firearms,
self-defense equipment I just mentioned. But
all right.
not weapon that requires a concealed weapon like a pistol, a pump action. You need to go for permits. A permit.
All right, Mr. Adetuberu, Mr. Demola Adetuberu, security consultant and CEO of the Barricade Executive Protection Limited. Thank you so much, and for always on the program. I can't forget pepper spray. And that sums it up on this side of on this segment. We'll be back with more on the conversation. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Just before we get to our conversation, I did say when we started the show, I was just rushing to get to work when I watched International Network, and I saw that there was an incident at the DC airport. So we have some details for you as far as the incident at that airport is concerned in America. What do we know so far? We can tell you that an American airline flight operated by PSA has collided with a military helicopter as it was approaching the Reagan Washington National Airport. The Federal Aviation Administration just confirmed this, and so far they say that the plane was carrying about 60 passengers and 4 crew members when it collided with the Black Hawk helicopter Wednesday night, which is like this morning. It had departed from Wichita in Kansas. The helicopter was carrying 3 soldiers. Multiple news outlets reported, citing U.S. defense officials. They say no senior Army officials were on board. So all takeoffs and landing were halted at the airport. The rescue operation got underway. So we're just following all of these stories. To understand also that dozens of firefighters were engaged in the dive operations on the Potomac River. The general president of the International Association of Firefighters, Ed O'Kelly, had put out that information. Ambulances and other rescue workers, including the military, the park police, and DC Metropolitan Police Department also rushed to the scene. So we are expecting some briefing as well. President Trump said he had been briefed on the terrible accident. He's praising the incredible work done by emergency service providers. So that is as far as we know. So we'll get some more details, Bukola. We'll let the people know.
That's a very sad one.
Very sad.
Even Senator Ted Cruz has been speaking on the incident, and he said that we know that there are fatalities from the plane and helicopter collision, although he did not say where he got his own information from yet. We hope that our birds flying the airspace, whether in Nigeria or any other part of the world, are safe.
Yeah, we can't take our minds what happened in Seoul. Now this is America. Our thoughts are with everyone, and we hope that it's not going to be as bad as we are concerned about. All right, so as soon as we get more details as far as this incident in the U.S. is concerned, we'll bring you up to speed. But let's come back to our Lagos studio, where we have joining us on the program the head people and culture optimist by Afrinvest, Damola Scott, as we talk about the future of work. Mr. Scott, I was asking the name. This is the second Scott we're having on the program. Are you related in any shape or form?
Not at all, not at all. Like I was telling you, I saw somebody on X, right, and she reached out to me and asked if I was one of our distant cousins. I was like, I'm not actually, right, because it's our father, you know, that kind of stuff like that.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that is happening in the digital space as far as work is concerned. Now there are so many kinds of disruption. We call it what's it called now? Is it the technology age? I think that's the term I was actually looking for, the fourth revolution. And now recently we're seeing what's played out between ChatGPT and DeepSeek and the argument about how much was funded by this, whether it's a propaganda. Well, I don't want to get into all of that. So is the future of work safe with humans? That's my first question.
Fantastic. I think that the future of work is safe. Now, what we are going to see in the future, we are already in the future, right? What we're going to see is augmentation, not displacement. What most people are scared of.
Are you sure?
Yes, I think so. Now, a couple of jobs will be displaced, while new jobs will be created. And that's exactly how it's going to be, because it's only those that do not upskill, do not get better, do not learn how to manage and use those technology, right? You know, those are the people that would be displaced, and those are the guys that will probably see their jobs lost. You know, if you take your mind back to maybe the 1980s, 1970s, there was a typewriter, right? And then computers came up, right? And it was the people that were typists that did not upskill, right, that lost their jobs. And if you go to some local governments, you still see them there till now typing on the typewriter, right?
What are they typing?
I don't know, they're typing affidavit, you know, and all of that, right? But those that actually upskill themselves and learned about what was happening in their environment began to rapidly upskill. And then that actually helped them. So new jobs will be created, right? While some other jobs will be obsolete. We shouldn't be scared of AI. We should actually embrace AI. Of course, it has its own downsides to it, but we should embrace it because it would make life easier for everybody.
The reason I asked for developing economy, because just for developing economies like ours, I know that, for instance, the president, Donald Trump, has said, drill, baby, drill. And has, I think, invalidated the EV mandate, which by that it means, for instance, the EU, fossil fuel beginning to phase out to an extent. And if they feel that they are not ready for the matchup, they will use what they have to protect themselves. So are we just going to be jumping on these things and not looking at the size of our population? First, we don't really have jobs, and now AI is coming with all these bots to threaten the small one we have.
Yes, so I think that what we just need to begin to think about, and that's one of the things I've seen with the third world, right? Most of the times there's no thinking that goes into when it comes to job creation. You see, when people want to create jobs, they're probably creating jobs that don't require some level of thought process or some level of intelligence. They're just creating manual jobs, right? And all of that. So what I believe is this, is that we need to think about it. And like you said, you know, our own situation, we need to localize these concepts and these ideas. You can't just jump on the bandwagon or whatever is happening or the new fad, right? But what you need to do is think about it and localize those ideas. Change is going to come, whether you like it or not. It's definitely going to come, right? We're going to have to go to the hybrid environment, the EV space. We're going to have to go to AI. We have to embrace it. But you have to begin to think about how will you localize these things and how will you gradually build a roadmap. So what I've seen is that we don't have a roadmap. There's no plan for job creation for 2025, for 2030. There's no 5-year plan to say this is how I want to create jobs. People say they want to create jobs when they're doing manifestos or whatever it is, but you see, there's no clear plan and there's no clear agenda on how you're going to create those jobs. So one of the things we need to begin to do is put on our thinking caps, localize these issues, and see what is happening globally. Let me just say this before you come in. In China already, you see young children beginning to learn about tech, learn about AI. They are building stuff and all of that, right? But that's because there's a plan. They have a plan already that they want to create this amount of jobs and this kind of jobs, right? But what we have here is there's no plan for our teeming population, right? So we need to begin to put on our thinking caps and localize these issues and find what will work for us in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole, and then we can begin to embrace those new things that are coming.
Now, you said something very critical earlier on. You said that there won't be job losses as such. I'm not quoting you copiously now, but there will be augmentation. And you talked about skill acquisition. So from the perspective of an HR professional, what are the additional skills that job seekers should begin to acquire? Because the goal of a job seeker, even the entrepreneur, is financial security in the long term. So in engineering, in accounting, in the media, what are the additional digital skills that we need to begin to acquire in order to safeguard our incomes?
Okay, so just to answer that question, I will just come from two sides, right? There's soft skills and the technical skills, right? So which you talk about, which is digital skills, the technical skills that everybody needs to begin to look at. Truth about it is that not all of us, everybody has the skill set or they have the capacity to learn these new skill sets, right? What you need to do is have what I call collaboration skills. Meaning that if I cannot develop the apps or develop the processes itself, but I can lead and I can bring a team together that would do those things as an entrepreneur, right? Because you don't want to begin to learn new things. I remember in 2018 I learned about data science, right? I went to an AI school, learned about data science, but I found out that I didn't have the skill sets for it. Like I was not that patient enough to begin to code and press something on my laptop. But what I've learned is how I can use that data science in my HR. Do you understand? So what you need to begin to think about is what these skills that are out there, how can I begin to augment it or add it to what I currently have? The World Economic Forum had listed about 10 soft skills that everybody needs to have, because whether you're an accountant, whether you are an HR professional, whether you are a software engineer, you need those soft skills. Right, so those are the most important things people need to focus on first of all, while now keeping their eyes open, right, to those digital skills that are currently there: cloud computing, AI, big data, and all of that. Those are the skills that people need to begin to look at. But not all of us can sit down on a computer right now and begin to code. Right, so we must not put ourselves under that pressure that we must learn those digital skills. So what we need to learn is how can I think clearly, digital leadership skills, right? Team leadership, self-leadership, and the collaboration skills. Those would actually help you to take the skill set of other people and use that for yourself as a business owner and also as an individual. That's what I think, actually.
So, let's be honest with ourselves. Do you foresee that in the long term, maybe not in the short term, but in the long term, that the human element will be eliminated in most skills that are quite close to, a form of digital intervention, such that even if you're going to be working at all, you'll be working from a particular location, there would not be the need for that hands-on element. Do you foresee that?
It's already happening, because a lot of our processes are beginning to get automated. A lot of companies have not just begun, they've over the years done that, but it's getting better and stronger, right? Where you're automating process, you just run a query and then it gives you all data that you need in that sense there. But so that means that there's no need for a data entry person anymore. Sometimes, so you have that, right? So it's already coming, it's already happening. And jobs, like I said, will definitely have to be phased out because those jobs are so close, like you said, right, to what AI can do or what data can do or what technology can solve for us, right? Now I'm not going to pour through Excel files when I'm doing payroll anymore, right? I'm probably using a particular, software to do that, right? So those jobs are beginning to find different meanings, right? So you need to begin to find different meanings within your particular job. So what I see is the concern and the fear, about whether my job is safe, and what I want to say, if that's the only thing I say here, is that people should not be scared of what's coming. Instead, you should openly embrace it and rapidly scale up.
Jeffrey, are you scared for your job?
No, I'm not scared. Well, there's always a way to how do you call it? Is it metamorphose? That's the right word. But there's something I want you to speak to, which has to do. I was listening to the current Prime Minister of Singapore and how they are thinking, and I want you to speak to how we can localize it here. Talking about upskilling and reskilling for people who are within certain age groups. So the people in their 40s or 50s who are retiring, I feel docile, irrelevant. The system is now providing some of a subvention and process where they can learn digital skills to still be relevant and provide and contribute to society. So if you were to give us like a bouquet, a kit for upskilling and reskilling within age brackets, say 20s, 30s, especially those above 40s, what will it be? You're an HR guy. Somebody, you need the energy and the experience all in one box.
So one of the things I've seen while working with different age groups is I found out that the people that are in their 50s and above that have kept a young mind and have intentionally sought out information, I've always looked younger than people that do not actually seek out those information, right? So one of the things I'm reading about is the fact that age should not begin to make you lose your virility and your strength, right, and your intelligence, right? So let me start from the 20s, right? If you're in 20 to 30s, right, you need to really hone into your tech skills, right? But of course, not everybody can do tech. That's the honest truth about it. What we can just do is use tech to actually to augment whatever we're doing. So if you're learning any skill or you're getting any new skill, right, the most important thing you need to focus on at that level is soft skills, emotional intelligence, leadership skills, because those are the things that would actually set you apart. I'll give you an example. There was a time where tech guys in Nigeria used to just be guys that were going to wear flip-flops, wear their t-shirts, be in their rooms and just code. And employers began to find out that they wanted people that had emotional intelligence to add to that skill set, right? Beyond just, because guys will just talk anyhow and behave anyhow to employers, right? And they wanted more from them, right? So if you're at that age and at that particular space, you need to add to those your technical skill sets, the soft skills, communication, leadership, emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, adaptability, right? Being able to adapt to different situations, resilience, right? Because most times people break easily. We have mental health conversations right now, right? So there's that. Gen Z is exactly right. They don't go through difficult things and they just want to chicken out immediately at the sight of issues, right?
Is that really true?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I really think so, right? Most times, people just say, hey, I have to guard my mental health, But some of us went through difficult things, right? And challenging things in our work experience to be able to get to where we currently are, right? So that's basically for that class of people, right? From the 30s, 40s, once you're 30 plus, people begin to look at you in a particular way, right? So at that point, you're probably at the top of your career, you're already leading people and all of that, right? At that point, what you need to have is ability to work across generations, meaning that you need to be able to, because most times what I found out is that if you are not intentional about learning about what these guys are doing and what they are learning, you will get lost out. You get lost, right? Most times they will just say something and you don't know what that means. So you need to be intentional at that point to learn how they are thinking, because you're going to lead those people, and that's why most times there are clashes in the organizations because different generations are having a clash of style. I want you to come in at 8 o'clock, but I can work anywhere from anywhere that I am, right? So you need to add to that intentionality, very, very important, and also keep your eyes open to the new fad and the new things that are happening. Even if you're not going to be an expert in that thing, at least understand exactly what is happening in that space. So there's AI, there's ChatGPT, there's DeepSeek, all that. Just find a little bit to understand. Ask questions. Very, very important. And once you are in your 40s and 50s, thank God for what Singapore is currently doing. And that's because they are intentional. They are thinking about it. And they are backed by data. Right. To see that.
Just because we're totally out of time, Bukola. Okay, Bukola.
I was going to ask, how do you conduct emotional intelligence, mental health tests for those that you're employing, even if they have digital skills?
30 seconds.
Thank you. There are assessments. Right, the assessment tools that you can use, and for emotional intelligence also too, you can always do different kind of tests. There's stress test. You can observe people, right, in groups, right? You can observe them in groups, and then you can also beyond that, you can always have trainings, right, where you are able to in those trainings now teach about it and then do a post test to see whether these people have learned those skill sets that you have taught them in the trainings.
Okay, because I wanted, but we're totally out of time. I wanted to find out whether this technology age is really making people more intelligent or less intelligent. sometimes we may miss that narration. But one answer,
Yes.
more or less, or is a hybrid of both?
It's a hybrid of both, yes. It depends on the person itself, actually.
All right.
Quite instructive.
All right, Demola Scott, head people and culture. Okay, that's HR now. That's a new term.
Yeah,
for HR.
you see that. That's
Head people, culture, and experience in some places.
Yeah, in some places.
So, head people and culture, Optimus by AfroInvest. Thank you so much for coming to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
All right, we will take a quick break. When we come back, we're not done with the conversation. We have a lot more, and this time we'll be talking to an artist. So, if you can paint, if you can draw, if you had those skills and you threw it away, it's time to pick up the pencil, and maybe you could get back to the game. Join us again.
Welcome back. So it's time now to look at the creative space. This time we're starting with the arts. And joining us for this conversation is Dr. Bolaji Ogunwo. He's a lecturer and artist, Department of Creative Arts, University of Lagos, Akoka, Lagos State University. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
You want Akoka to come for it? It's actually University of Lagos. He still went back to Lagos State.
Okay, University of Lagos, Akoka.
Yes, please.
Don't worry, I'm also a product of Lagos State University, so nobody's coming for anybody. We're in the same family. So walk us through the toolkit for the visual artist in today's climb, where the digital space is impacting everything that we're doing.
Okay. Visual art is an expression of your feelings, and everyone has a talent. So how to get it across is where visual art comes in. So for me, I'm an artist, I'm a painter. And I've been doing this for over 3 decades. And there's a way, it's how I communicate. It's how I say how I feel and what I want people to see. And for me, art is not just a means of expression, it's an avenue of solving problems for me. The digital era is all the inventions and the technologies are there to solve problems. So also is my own brush on my canvas, solving problems. As somebody said, if your toilet is more than 15 seconds from your bed, you are poor. Are you processing that? That if your toilet is more than 15 seconds from your bed, you are poor.
So how does art solve that problem?
So that is how you solve the problem for me, because I was poor. Yeah. So art for me is a tool through which I've solved my personal problems, and I'm solving the problem of space for others. If you notice now in architecture, in building, they now create room where art will lie. So art is not just an ornament hanging on the wall. So if you look at my work, I paint what is called impasto. Impasto is a thick application of colors on canvas. And that is intentional.
Like what we're seeing on the
screen. Yeah, like what you're seeing on the screen. Oh. You can see it's not just a flat brush.
Yes.
It's thick. You can feel the tactile quality. You can see the texture is high. And that is intentional because as an artist, I'm painting the Nigeria I would like to see. My father told me that his father told him that times are always difficult, that things don't work here. But I said, my children will not tell their children what my father told me, that I will make a difference. And I'm not an engineer, I'm not an architect, I'm an artist. So the only way I can get that done is to paint. And that I've been doing, and solving problems, having exhibitions. And for example, in 2023, I had a solo exhibition called Terra Firma. looking at the gains from the pandemic. You know, all the media has been about the losses from the pandemic, but there are gains from the pandemic. During the pandemic, we learned how to work from home. During the pandemic, everybody could be in their spaces and be having meetings. So the pandemic opened us up to vistas of possibilities and understanding. So my art sees the positive side.
So there's a part to what you're thinking, what you want to sell, what you want to give out, what you want to communicate. There's also the reception of what you're giving out. How's the reception been? And we're going to speak to some of your art. I like what I'm saying, the imposter. You're going to speak to individual. We like our artists to always speak so that people don't understand some of the mistakes that are not well clear. Will be able to get that interpretation. So in terms of reception and acceptance, you've done a solo exhibition. I'm sure you've done this for many years. Reception, talk to us about that.
Fantastic. In 2023, I had Terra Firma Lagos in the National Museum. We had Terra Firma London, Woolwich Arsenal in the UK. We had Terra Firma Chicago, Bronzeville in Illinois, and all sold out. So I'm busy.
So there's a lot of money. So you're not one of those lecturers that are worried about salaries.
Is not now 15 seconds to your room, right?
But so, the part I was even talking about, I say is doing well, is busy. So it's not you're not, whether they are paying you money as salary, it doesn't matter.
No.
Oh, I like that.
So it's a leverage for me. Like I said, it's the avenue I found to solve my problem, and not just solving my problem. As many that are connected to me, I'm also putting food on their table. If a painting is sold, all the proceeds is not coming to me. I looked at the figures last year. Where I buy colors, I paid them 6 million naira. I think I'm their biggest
client. And that's beautiful because it ties in with what you said about painting the Nigeria of your dreams. And if you're paying your paint supplier 6 million naira, that's getting you closer to the Nigeria of your dreams. But let's see the Nigeria of your dreams in your paintings now. Can you interpret some of them to us and how this is the Nigeria of our dreams?
Okay, great.
So you're going to walk through, they'll be coming in quick succession, so maybe 1 word, 2 word. So this one, let's talk about this one.
Okay, so this is study. What I'm saying here is everything you're looking for. Someone has had that experience, and they are in books. So if you can read, readers are leaders.
Is there a reason why a woman is the one holding the book?
That anybody, that all you need, the more you learn, the more you earn.
Okay, maybe we're going to get to the next one as soon as they show it to us.
Is there any reason why a woman should not hold a book? Just asking.
No, I'm just saying. You know, artists always have their own interpretation for different things. So you may not see the picture.
And artists have their own interpretation, but you also can read meanings to it. So this is called Prayer Walk. It's an adaptation of the Mecca scene, where you have the crowd praying. And what I'm saying here is that let's pray for Nigeria. Nigeria is all we have. Apart from being an artist, I'm also a pastor. So, but this is not just about. The Bible says, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem; they shall prosper." I love it. So, if all of us can begin to speak positively about Nigeria, pray for Nigeria, I know things are getting better, and we'll get there.
All right, let's see
I hope
which
we back
one
that up with
we're
work
going for next,
beyond the
and
prayers
we'll just
as well.
keep going as we have them. Yes, this one I was really interested in. This one, talk to us.
So this is Cheers. That's the title. I paint when I know people are going through tough times, but I wanted to see my paintings and connect that energy coming from there, the joy that no matter what happened yesterday, that you wake up and this is on your wall, it's telling you it's a new day. Make a difference. Just get it done. And you know, like I said, I paint Nigeria. We are rich in human capacity. We are rich in oil. I don't have access to crude oil, but I have access to oil color. So this is what I'm doing with the oil color at my disposal.
And you're doing pretty well with it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe take 3 or 2 more.
And the women, you know, find expression in a lot of your paintings.
Yes.
This is another woman.
Yeah.
I hope Jeffrey doesn't have a problem with it.
No, I can never have a problem. Never.
Okay, so let's look at this one.
Okay, this is in pixel. Like you will see it clearer when you look at it from your phone camera. Yeah, this, you can see there are 2 men on horses there. So if you look at it from your phone camera, it becomes clearer. These are the series of works I started doing when COVID came. You know, every problem, the problem is not the problem. The problem is the man facing the problem. So when COVID came, it wasn't a problem. It was a time for us to break and to look at what we've been looking at differently. So if you look at it from your phone camera, it becomes clearer. And what that means is that everything we are looking for is around. We just need to be still. We just need to pay. The price for greatness is attention. And no man is too broke to pay attention.
All right, so finally, tips for emerging painters or people who don't paint like Bukola. Bukola says she doesn't paint. So if she gets interested in painting.
I can paint my nails sometimes.
Yeah, everybody paints. Yeah.
So I still paint something.
Yeah, because painting is about colors. Yeah, you paint the house, your decor. Yeah. So for the emerging artists, there are 3 secrets to becoming a master. Number 1 is practice. Number 2 is practice. Number 3 is practice.
Yet again, is practice.
Yeah. So it's walk. Just keep walking. The mastery comes, professionalism comes, discovery comes, and money comes.
Amen to that.
You keep walking.
We like that part, by the way.
All right. It's an expansive conversation. I was going to talk about the abstract and how that is, you know, an esoteric field as far as painters are concerned. But of course, we'll get you back sometime on the program. Thank you so much, sir. We've been talking with Dr. Bolaji Ogunwo, lecturer artist, Department of Creative Arts, University of Lagos, Akoka. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day. Yeah.
From here, we'll move to another creative space with a conversation just as important and interesting that you, as a creative, will profit from. So join us again. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We did promise that as soon as we get more updates as far as the incident in the United States is concerned at the Reagan Washington National Airport, where a military helicopter collided with a commercial plane, will bring you up to speed. And we have some visuals to show. This may be sensitive to some of our viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. So look closely at that picture. We're going to roll it again. So see the smaller one approaching the bigger one, and then gets close, and then that collision happened, boom. So we don't have details of the casualty. So that's exactly what plays out, about the landing points of both planes. So that's why we circled it, so you can see if you look closely on when the helicopter was approaching, I think, the airline, and then it exploded. Okay. So that's exactly what played out at that particular airport. So we've told you about it. We've seen the visuals at least. I know it's pixelated kind of, but you can make sense of what played out. But as soon as we get details of casualties and all of that, we'll bring you up to speed. But back to our conversation. We're being joined on the program by a journalist, an author, filmmaker, creative director at Mflux Visual, as well as an alumni of Lagos Business School. That's a Pan Atlantic University. Joining us on the program is Adewale Adebayo. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
I don't even know where do I start talking to you about journalism, writing, filmmaking?
It's a big world. I started as a conventional journalist, just like you. But with time, we know you just have to evolve. That the digital space was waiting for some of us to come play big in it, and that was what brought about the involvement from being a journalist to a filmmaker and a content creator.
So we want to quickly have a feel of your work. You know, you're multifaceted. There's so many things you are doing. So before we come back to you, let's just have a feel of your work so the audience can have a feel of what we're talking about. The man does many things, so check it out.
This girl will not kill herself. Bridget!
Now, Mama Felicia, what is it?
So I'm not the problem, Abby.
I didn't say that.
I've been standing here calling you like 100 times, Bridget, you did not answer.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I know you did not hear me. You are busy thinking about that your useless and wicked husband.
I don't insult my husband now. I don't like it.
So I cannot tell you the truth, Abby. But anyway, I didn't come for quarrel. How far with your journal? How many make a right?
Sit down there and do nothing. Please now. She's our only daughter.
I have only a son. I do not have a daughter.
Listen to yourself. No, just listen to yourself, Collins. Oh, so you now disown your daughter just because she makes a little mistake?
A mistake?
Yes.
Look.
All right, I apologize for that use of language. But by the way, Mr. Deboya, that is part of your...
Yes.
I told you we're going to start... how do you put it down? Is it compartmentalized? That's what I was looking for. Let's begin with the filmmaking part. Talk to us about that movie.
Yeah, Bridget, it's a 13-part series that we shot last year. It's at the stage of post-production, almost out, and very soon you are going to have a feel of it by the grace of God. Like I told you earlier, my foray into film production, into content, into digital space didn't just come. I knew as a conventional journalist, I had to evolve because at some point we knew things where, let me say this, I was a publisher. I had my newspaper, I was publishing. But you know the challenge of newsprint and all the rest fluctuating. I knew I had to play big in the digital space, and that's what brought me over to filmmaking. I don't only do filmmaking, I write script also.
Okay, go on.
So this is an interesting conversation by every stretch of the imagination. We started off from the second part of the program talking about the impact of the digitalization on every facet of work, and if we stretched it to Nollywood itself, we recall when it was inevitable that you did a promo on television to promote a film, but that in itself has been phased out. The other time last year we had a segment on the show when we piggybacked to those days of video clubs and video cassettes, and we've transited to streaming platforms. So talk to us about, for starters in the industry, what are the toolkits that a creative must have in Nollywood? Is it enough to be just a thespian now in Nollywood if you must make significant impact?
Well, that's a very good question. But before answering that, it will also be good for us, just like you said, to have an evolution of how we started to where we are now. Then I will now answer your question. What are the basic toolkits a filmmaker or a content creator must have? First, it is important for us to know what we now refer to as the Nollywood evolved over time. I think it started in the pre-colonial and the post-colonial eras in the 60s, when we have the likes of the Hubert Ogundes of this world who were doing the Alarinjo theater, that are taking theaters from one town to another, up to the 70s when government and private were building cinemas, and we had so many foreign cinemas coming into Nigeria. And I think the Hubert Ogundes of this world, the Moses Olayas of this world, that is the Babasala, the Eddie Ubomas of this world, decided to say, let us transcend from mere theater to filmmaking. And that was when we were making film with the 35mm celluloid. For most Gen Z who might not understand what 35mm celluloid is. So it went at some point, but it was costly shooting the 35mm celluloid on film. And that was what brought about in the 90s, the early 90s, when Kenneth Nebwe said, oh, let us shoot Living in Bondage, where we have the VHS, which we refer to as the video cassette, the video home system cassette. And people found out that it was cheaper to shoot. And you had a more larger appeal. So we transited from the 35mm celluloid down to the VHS, and that was actually the real birth of Nollywood up till the 2000s when the streaming platforms start coming in. The VHS cassette technology evolved and had to probably throw it out of system. Now, coming back to what you said, for a content creator, basically there are 4 things that you must have. The 4 things are first internally. 1, you must have content, you must have idea, you must have something to tell. 2, you must be consistent. It is important. If you are not consistent, you cannot survive in this industry. The 3rd one is character. You must have the right character, because this industry will try you, will tempt you, and all the rest. Then the last one is the C, which I called collaboration. You must be able to collaborate. You can't do it alone. No filmmaker does it alone. So it is important. Now, for the right toolkit, your phone. You can start shooting with your phone. I tell most people I teach that, look, you don't need to get the bigger gadget. You can start with your phone. Start with what you have, grow with what you have, and when you get there, you can get the right gadget. But we have kids that want to buy the bigger camera, they want to buy an Arri Alexa. No. Start with what you have and grow with what you have. When you get there, you can have the money to get the right equipment.
One of the things that is very complex to decipher for anybody is dealing with the audience, which is have they call it more like the purchasing pattern of your audience, how they want to consume your content and all of that. I see that a lot of people now, there was a time it was cinema, there's now a hybrid of cinema and streaming platform, but there's something going on now where a lot of people are now putting their movies on YouTube. I can also see your own on YouTube. What exactly is going on here?
And now, you see, the digital space is wide. Is very, very, very wide. And just as it was projected this year, both on YouTube, streaming and cinema, we expect to have close to $15 billion coming into the movie industry in Nigeria. It's massive. Now, every filmmaker has his own audience. And I tell people you have to define your own audience. For the streaming platforms, let me also say this. The content we consume on the streaming platforms are actually determined by Nigerians in diasporas. What do they want to watch? Because most of the streaming platform makes their money from the diasporas. So they determine what they want to. And that's why you see a lot of epic movies on streaming platforms these days. Most of the streaming platforms are asking for epic movies. They want us to tell Nigerian stories, epic stories, and that's why they will pay through their nose to get epic stories on there. Now, for the YouTubers, YouTube, I tell people who are growing, you can start with the YouTube. People can know it because it is free. Or you just load your data and go on YouTube and your film is there. There is no too much regulation on YouTube as compared to streaming platforms and cinemas where you must go to the Nigerian Film and Video Censor Board and all the rest. So, but most importantly, let us produce good content that is educative, entertaining, and informative. So basically, your audience is determined by your pocket and your budget too.
Yeah, because the audience is really getting big. I've seen a couple of movies on the YouTube and I kind of enjoy it. Kola?
Well, for me, I think I'd like to know which you think is more viable in the long term in terms of profitability and retention of our intellectual property. Because the concern is that a lot of our material, a lot of our history, our heritage is, in the hands, whether or not they've paid for it, of the streaming platforms. But for instance, if we're able to produce from here something as important and as precious as Things Fall Apart, the story from the book of our own legend, Chinua Achebe, and it is put on YouTube, owned by a Nigerian company, it stays here. So for you, which trumps the other? The streaming platforms, or maybe we create our own streaming platform, or maybe we retain it in our own YouTube channels?
I want to be very careful here. One does not trump the other. They are meant to complement each other, because you also look at, we are trying to reach out to a particular audience, and our audience differs. There are some people who don't have money to pay for streaming platform in this part of the world, and people who have money to just buy few data and they can probably go stream any film on YouTube. But the fact of the matter brings me to Nollywood and some of the challenges we have. Finance will always come on board. For us to have a proper streaming platform, we need finance. It's the truth, because if you say you are setting up a streaming platform, you need content to be placed on that streaming platforms, and content costs money. content costs money. And this is why I want government to come in. Although our private bodies are trying, people like Conley Afolayan, CAP Film Village, Ibrahim Chatta, he has built a film village. We need more film villages. We need not just film villages with the right gadgets and equipment, where content creators, filmmakers can go and shoot for a small amount of money. So it's a function of finance. If you have the right finance, you can set up your own streaming platform. But basically, if you don't have your own streaming, if you don't have the money to set up your own streaming platform, we can start. I say it is not one triumphing over. It is us trying to complement each other and reaching out to our audience.
While he was just talking, I was just thinking about what is happening with ChatGPT and DeepSeek. Somebody described it as a Nigerian company telling maybe a Tesla that we're going to produce the Okano car with 100,000 naira, and they actually did. Maybe we should think innovatively on how to do this. But as we begin to wind down, what are the things you think, do you think can the policymakers can begin to put in place in terms of implementation? There's a lot of talk from Ministry of Art, Culture, Tourism, and I think there are three, Creative Economy. Yeah. There's a big plan. There's a very ambitious, bold plan, but implementation is another kettle of fish. From a practitioner's point of view, what do you like to see?
Thank you very much. I want to see more of implementation. BOI, the Bank of Industry, at some time had a plan for the creative industry, but it was more of a talk. There was no implementation. So I want to see more of implementation. Lagos State also, in their creative economy, also set up training people at different, but the issue is not just training. We must also put them to work. They must work, because in this industry, it is one thing to train, it's another thing. Just like the other guy said, you must practice. It is practice that makes practice. So I want more of implementation, not just talk this time around. Because I tell people, if you want to change the narrative, there's always a narrative about us. You need to look more into the creative and film industry. They will help change the narrative that you are trying to paint out there.
Amazing. I've learned something today. Consistency, character, content, and collaboration. A toolkit for a content creator starter.
Thank you so much for coming on the program, Mr. Adeola Adebayo, alumni of Pan-Atlantic University, journalist, author, filmmaker, creative director at Mflux Visual, an organization that deals with film production and digital education. Thank you. We appreciate you. All right, so we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll bring you what you've been saying on X and possibly some update as far as that accident, media collision between an helicopter and a commercial plane in the U.S. is concerned. Join us again. Welcome back. So we're going to wind down to tell you what we've been talking about. The next, for those who were not watching, the incident at the Reagan National Airport outside Washington, D.C. So we try to show you the visuals there. We always advise viewer discretion is advised. So you can see it more closely now. The commercial airline approaching the runway, and then that collision midair with the helicopter, the military helicopter, it happened late last night, according to officials from the United States. So we'll just show you one more time on how this, so it just, we understand there were casualties. We don't know, perhaps no one survived. We're not sure yet, but that seemed to be the information coming out. So that's why we gave that pointer. Boom. All right. It's quite sad.
That's a sad one.
That's very
Once
sad.
again, our prayers and our thoughts are with those who may be affected by this particular incident. And so we move to trends now. What are you saying about some of the big stories? We start with the courts, and this one is about the Lagos lawyer who had been prior to this time at loggerheads with Afe Babalola, founder of the Afe Babalola University, who has now dropped charges against Lagos lawyer over some items in his book that he published recently. But don't forget that there are still other cases against the Lagos lawyer by lawyers in the Afe Babalola chambers. So what are you saying,
and
Johnny?
The IGP has also dropped his case against Farotimi.
Okay, interesting. Johnny Seka is the first user this morning, and you say, welcome development, but it shows the kind of mess our legal system is in. It's supposed to be a criminal matter between Farotimi and the police, but a day after Afe Babalola says he no longer pursues his civil case, the police also discontinues theirs.
Okay, we want to run through this as quickly as possible. Let's get to what happened yesterday at the Secretariat, the Wadata House in Abuja. So there's a contention, the position of National Secretary. So that's Ude Okoye, the one who is saying I'm supposed to be the National Secretary of the party, giving the Court of Appeal a decision, contesting that position with Sam Ayanwo. It got really, really feisty and physical. In fact, they literally fought. I'm talking about Ude Okoye and some of the people that were trying to stop him from entering into the BOT meeting that was to be held at the Wadada House, which is the National Secretariat of the PDP. Well,
very embarrassing there. Danladi Musa is the first user. You have it, Jeffrey.
Is this the Nigeria of the dream of our founding fathers? Is this what they envisaged while struggling for independence from our colonial masters? That's Danladi Musa's remark after I'm sure he saw that incident in Abuja.
And God's favorite is the next. God's favorite says Nigerians need to look for a formidable alternative to the PDP if it cannot govern itself. No right-thinking Nigerian should give Nigeria to it to rule.
All right, so I think, do we have time for one more? Yes, I think the one that has to do with the APC expelling Aregbesola, the former Minister of the Interior and former Governor of Osun State, over alleged anti-party activities. Well, so there's trouble everywhere as far as politics.
It's concerned, right?
It's interesting. It's interesting. The trouble is interesting as long as they're not killing themselves. It gives us talking points. Well, SMD says this move suggests deepening internal rift within the APC, as Aregbesola has been at odds with certain factions within the party, particularly in Osun politics.
And Ashiwaju Said Salimi has a brief one. You're saying he has declared he's no longer in APC. Why is the party giving him this much attention?
Okay, this person, Fancy, I don't know whether male or female, so now he will go and form alliance with El Rufai and join forces with Atiku. Boom! Next messiahs have arrived.
Really? Well, Jeffrey's saying as long as they're not killing each other.
As long as they're not killing each other,
whatever they're doing, if it degenerates to what should be agreeable conduct on the surface, is a form of example which is not wholesome for the younger ones who are aspiring to such offices. So politicians must also learn to conduct themselves appropriately.
It's a power struggle. Politicians believe you must grab power. The president said, grab it, hold it, grab it. So they are grabber. But one more before we go, the Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali have officially left ECOWAS yesterday. You know, ECOWAS had agreed. So, okay, you want to go? Thank you. So the people in those countries, they rally so you can see them quite excited that finally they've left ECOWAS. Well, we are still within the region in terms of geography, but as a bloc, in terms of the things we do together, they're now in their own alliance of Sahel communities. So that's the pictures coming in from some of those countries: Burkina Faso, Mali, and our neighboring country, Niger. All right.
Do we have time to take their thoughts on this one?
No. So I want to thank you for your time and company. We'll bring you up to speed in our subsequent programs. Whatever is happening in the APC, PDP, or national politics and the economy, that's what we're right here for. Top on the hour will be Sunrise Daily. Thank you so much. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Bye-bye.
I am Bukola Kokakade. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye for now.